What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Richard Steele. As you guys know, I've created a new series on the channel called Referees Review. One of my latest counterpunches in my latest review was Tony Weeks, and I did a couple other ones. And I must say that I have to apologize to someone. And his name is Richard Steele. Richard Steele is, he's a known referee or ex-referee. Now he promotes a bit in Las Vegas. And for the longest time, I used to trash Richard Steele. I used to trash his name because of the Mildred Taylor versus Julio Cesar Chavez one fight, on how he stopped the fight after 3 seconds left when Mildred was winning on points, and he waved the fight off and Mildred Taylor was up. That changed the career of a lot of people, including Mildred Taylor and Julio Cesar Chavez. And because of that reason, I used to trash him along with others that trashed his name as well. And I thought to myself, well, I mean, I don't feel alone, because you don't know what type of impact that put on that fighter or fighters. What did you do to them, really? And I'll say this. I held that grudge all the way up until around almost 6 years ago. In 2019, in January, I got the pleasure of meeting Richard Steele. And I got to tell you, when I met Richard Steele, he saw me. And I guess because of my build, he probably thought, man, are you a fighter? And I was like, no, I'm not a fighter. And we got to talking briefly because I worked at the casino, and we were talking at my old job. And, he asked me a couple questions or whatever, and, we talked briefly. And I got to tell you guys something. This is one of the nicest men I ever met. Like, seriously, one of the nicest men I ever met in the business. And I immediately started to feel like shit. Really. I mean, because I didn't feel good about saying all that I've said for years about Richard Steele. And then when I finally met the man, I had no complaints whatsoever. And it made me think. Richard Steele had hundreds of fights. He refereed hundreds of them for a very long time. I mean, Richard Steele stretched from the 70s, 80s, and 90s through the 2000s. And he finally retired from refereeing, but, he refereed for a long time. Now, out of one fight, he got that type of reputation. You have to remember something. Everybody could have an off night, a bad night, a not so good night, a not 100% night. And I, at this point, have to chop Richard Steele up for the benefit of the doubt that he had an off night. Okay. Now, we can throw the possibility that that fight was rigged, like boxing, the sport that I love, that I hate so much, that certain things were set in place for certain things to happen if given the right opportunity. You can't overlook that, because, of course, this is the sport that we love, that we hate so much. I know I do. Again. So we can't overlook that. But knowing what I knew, I think, or learning what I've learned about meeting him face to face, it made me feel guilty talking shite about that man. Because that man was just nice, and I didn't feel, and I felt just kind of bad, but kind of hypocritical. Like, man, I was talking all this about this man. Why couldn't you say that to this man? Because that's one of my beliefs. But I mean, he's been out of the sport so long. I think to bring that up would kind of be not the thing to do, especially that fight happened over 25 years ago or 20 some odd years ago at that time. Okay, because keep in mind this was 2019. So that's 19, almost 30 years. So you know what I mean? I thought to myself, like, wow, what a nice guy. And I just have to I'm just letting you guys know what happened, how I used to feel about him versus when I finally met Richard Steele. But you guys tell me what you think about this apology for Richard Steele and the referee review. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been counterpunching. Peace!